Eyes Made for Stars asking, what has been going on this past week? People have been crazy. It's a full moon in Libra. That's what's been going on. This full moon in Libra is really doing a lot of things to a lot of us because Libra really speaks to relationships. So once you get into the space of relationships, you're basically getting into the heart of life because there is no life without relationships. Like, think about it. The only reason you and I are here is because two people had an agreement. They agreed to do something together. And then we were made out of that, regardless of what the circumstances was with them. Because in order to create life, you need to share. You need to come together. That's how it works. So the whole point of life is about sharing energy. This is why I believe Libra is the most blessed zodiac sign, because they fundamentally already understand that life is about sharing. Many of us don't understand the purpose of life, and Libra already comes here understanding that. They understand that nobody can survive on their own because nobody was made without sharing. So this Libra full moon is highlighting for all of us the issues that we have with loving ourselves and loving other people properly, treating ourselves fairly and treating other people fairly. So any imbalance that we may be experiencing, within ourselves is going to be reflected out here. Thanks to you guys that are sharing the live. I appreciate it. Feel free to share it with your friends and family who are into astrology. And if you wouldn't mind going ahead and tapping on the screen for me so we can wake this thing up, I would really appreciate it. So the Libra full moon has been highlighting, the instability in all of us, all the instability that we've been running away from. Hi, Trista Smith. Thank you for sharing the live. I appreciate it. Thank you for being here, and thank you for getting the #1 gifter badge. I really appreciate it. Hi, Candy Page. Thank you for joining the live. So this Libra full moon is basically highlighting the imbalance that we've been feeling in ourselves. A lot of times when we feel unbalanced, and thank you for all the likes, Trisha, I appreciate it. A lot of times when we feel unbalanced, because life is busy, we can kind of sweep that instability under the rug and just keep moving forward, do the things that we have to do to get through the day. Because we know at some point we have to go to bed. So at some point we go to bed and we can move on and start over the next day and do it all over again. The universe is constantly talking to us, constantly nudging us, constantly trying to bring us into, a spirit of harmony, a spirit of balance, a spirit of peace, a spirit of deeper love with ourselves and deeper love with other people. And oftentimes, especially depending on how imbalanced we can be, it can require like a huge overhaul, like a huge change for us to reestablish that balance. It can be challenging having to kind of like see the ways in which you haven't been nice to yourself, you haven't been loving on yourself, you haven't been prioritizing your needs, you've been neglecting your desires, you've been like suppressing, yourself. And the thing about living life this way, this mindset where we make ourselves feel small, we pretend not to have problems when we have problems, we pretend to be happy when we're miserable, is that the universe starts like giving us more of that energy, because the universe really is a mirror. This is a cosmic mirror. Whatever you are, that's what the universe gives you. However you are, that's what the universe reveals to you. So we're being like flooded. We're being exposed to ourselves in ways that are uncomfortable. Like our shadows are being exposed. A full moon is always going to expose shadows, but when it's in Libra, it carries divine karmic Saturnian energy to it. So karma is being handed out during this time as well. So if there's been some imbalance in our relationships, during this time, we're going to see it more. Everything is just going to be more obvious during this time. And that's painful. It hurts to see the ways you've been letting yourself down, and the ways you've been letting other people down, and the ways you've been playing small, and the ways you've been contributing to your own instability. You know, it can be very painful. Pretty much what's been going on. We've all been struggling, trying to regain our balance, regain our footing. You know, justice, karma is really about divine justice and love. That's really all it is. You know, it's like what's fair and what's the most loving thing. And if we haven't been doing the most fair thing for ourselves or the most loving thing for ourselves, we're going to be confronted with that, and it's a reality we won't be able to escape. The other thing that's happening with this full moon, while I'm waiting to answer your next question, is there is an element of finality to it. So this full moon is basically forcing us to reckon with the fact that this is the end of a karmic cycle. This is the end of a journey. Like, there's no turning back from here. There's no pretending that we're not where we are. There's no pretending that we don't know what we know. Everything is crystal clear. Everything is obvious. Everything is right at the table, and everything is palatable. It's hard for us to manipulate ourselves or trick ourselves into another reality when the truth is so sobering. That's the thing about karma, is that it's so sobering. It's so intense. It's like you can't unsee it, you know? So that's the other thing that's been making everyone feel antsy. So there's just a lot of anger in the air, in addition to this being Aries season. So, you know, we may even be angry at ourselves for things that we've allowed, you know, situations that we've allowed, you know, decisions we've made. So overall, under a Libra full moon, we're going to have a lot of revelations about our lack of balance when it comes to balancing out our selfishness against the protection of others, because that's really what it's about. It's about, how am I managing my energy? How selfish am I being in my relationship with other people? Am I giving enough of myself to other people? Or am I just taking from other people? Am I giving as much as I'm taking? Am I fighting for myself? Am I standing up in my truth? Am I owning my reality? So if we haven't been living in truth, and we haven't been standing up in our own truth and standing up for ourselves, this time is going to be a bit difficult, because this time is asking us to really examine, you know, how we do relationships with ourselves. Because ultimately, you are your responsibility. You're the only one responsible for you. Even if you're married, you know, your husband or your wife, your spouse, whoever they are to you, like your partner, they're not responsible for your feelings. They can't make you feel better if you're feeling sad. They can do things to help you, but they can't come inside your body and flip a switch from sad to happy. You know, the work that we each need to do to find our inner balance or inner harmony, the work that we need to do to find, you know, our sense of contentment and fulfillment with life, you know, what it is that we need internally to find our peace, is upon us. You know, we have to work on that. We have to create that. We have to focus on that. So the ways in which we've been letting ourselves down in that department is being highlighted to us, because sometimes we're our own worst enemy, but we don't even know that. Sometimes we actively work to self-destroy, you know, the peace that we have, because, you know, deep down we don't believe we deserve it. And maybe we've never had it. So when we get a taste of it, we sabotage it. That's also very common with Aries energy. So a lot of that is being exposed. And underneath all of that is insecurities and, you know, fear. That's really what that is. Good question. Pearl said, we air signs are adaptable zodiac signs. So which sign is best for us? Okay. So the zodiac signs that are the most compatible with air signs are going to be other air signs. So that would be Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Those are the air signs. Hi, Ida. Thanks for being here. Now, once the air signs leave their air sign village and they want to date people from outside their own energy, my recommendation is that they go straight to the fire sign village, because air and fire are compatible, beautiful energy together, because fire can't even fire without air. So fire needs air to survive, and air needs fire to keep burning. So Those two elements are naturally very compatible. And the fire signs are Aries, Leo, who knows the other fire sign? And Sagittarius, that's right. Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius are the fire signs of the zodiac. So air signs are ideal for other air signs. Outside of air signs, fire signs are the most compatible. Except Leo loves Sagittarius and Aries. That's okay. You're not supposed to like everyone. And you know, depending on our own history with energies, like even though, you know, on paper we're compatible, you know, it may not be a good match. You know, a match isn't just what the book says. There's so much that goes into it. And if I was doing an astrology chart reading of a couple, I would be looking at so many other variables besides just, you know, sun sign, because the sun sign typically doesn't even tell us very much except ego. Hi, JB. Thanks for being here. It's really nice to see you. You know, two fixed signs and it's hard to get along with them. Oh, I totally get that. Hi, Scorpio 56. Thanks for joining. Hello. Yeah, fixed signs are hard to get along with. I would agree with that because fixed signs generally need things to be their way. Fixed signs, that's why they're called fixed. Fixed signs are not very flexible. They're not very malleable. They're not good followers. You know, they're not easily led. They have a hard time giving into other people's hand. You know, which typically that's kind of required to be in a relationship. You know, there's like a giving and a taking that needs to happen. So generally fixed signs do better in relationship with people who are comfortable following them, because fixed signs usually need a little bit of control because they're not very flexible, because that's their nature. Their nature is to be inflexible. So being inflexible, a relationship with someone who's also inflexible is going to be challenging, because lack of flexibility from two people doesn't lend to a peaceful atmosphere. You know, you need give and take. And that's not to say fixed signs cannot give. Obviously they can and they do, but there's a lot that they require on the front end for them to be comfortable being malleable, being comfortable being led, being comfortable having a different opinion. That's the other thing they struggle with, all of them, being, you know, willing to do things differently because they're very set in their ways. And that would be Taurus is the first one. Yeah, that's fixed earth. Okay. And then, you know, Scorpio, fixed water. Leo, obviously fixed fire. Since we're speaking about Leo, I was trying not to pick on them so much. And Aquarius, fixed air. Aquarius seems like they would be the most open-minded out of all of them, but Aquarius is also very rigid, just like the other four. You know, Aquarius is open-minded in terms of being open to the world and being open to diversity and understanding that we're all one. Like, all Aquarians get that. All Aquarians don't struggle with issues that most people struggle with, like homophobia, racism, sexism. Like, Aquarians get that everyone deserves to be here and everyone has a right to live because everyone is a human, therefore everyone is worthy. So on a theoretical basis, Aquarius naturally is going to be receptive to everyone's energy and more open to that. But asking an Aquarius to gel well with someone who doesn't have the same beliefs about the world, yeah, that's not gonna go very well. They're not very malleable when it comes to their beliefs, you know, their ethics, their values. Like, they're gonna stand by they're gonna stand their ground, you know. Although they look the most chilled, I would say, they look the most chilled out of the foursome. But all of these four guys, they're all are the same, more or less, which is inflexible, stubborn, demanding, controlling, you know, set in their ways. Like, they need a lot of control to be able to do partnership. They don't come into partnership to experiment. You know, and you can see that specifically with the first fixed sign, Taurus. Taurus, if they like somebody, they will watch that somebody for a long time before they even decide to approach them, okay? Before they even decide to approach. I'm not even saying date, I'm saying approach. So Taurus will sit back and they will gather a lot of information before they even decide, am I going to do something with this information? This is what I mean. And Taurus, in my opinion, is the most fixed of all the fixed signs because they're fixed in nature and modality, and they're earthy. Earth is the most rigid of all of the elements. So you see how slow Taurus is to move? I don't know if any of you know any Taurians, but these people do not move fast. These people take their time. These people are never in a rush for anything. Like their trust in the flow of life, and they're very much so about controlling the tempo. So Taurus, observing you for a long time before they even approach you is, to me, is a good depiction of how fixed fixed signs really are, because they don't just dive into things, because when they get in, it's hard for them to get out. That's the thing. That's the reason why they're that way. When they get in, it's hard to find the door. They have a hard time admitting when they're wrong. They have a hard time changing course. They have a hard time admitting when that was wrong. They made a mistake. That was the wrong thing to do. They made, like, they went the wrong way. Like that, a fixed sign admitting that they're wrong, they would rather like die than to say like, my calculations were incorrect. It's just not their forte because they're not very malleable. And that involves being psychologically malleable too. And that goes even for the most intellectual one of them, which is Aquarius. Aquarius also struggles with that. So that should tell you what a fixed sign is like, even though they are an air sign, So yeah, fixed signs have difficulty with collaboration because of their inability to give. They want to control, but they don't want to give. Giving is like, you do it without thinking. Like you give it and then you move on. Aquarius can give more energetically because the water barrier is here to pour. But once an Aquarius realizes that what they're giving is going to waste, or it's not being used for the right reasons, they have no problems turning it off. And then that's that. It's like a switch. Is done. Like they have no feelings about it either. It's just done. So I would say a relationship with all the fixed signs can be difficult for that reason, but obviously there are lots of good things that come from being a fixed sign. A lot of times people pick on Leo because Leo is fiery, Leo's loud, Leo is over the top, Leo's commanding, Leo needs a lot of attention. So it's easy to single Leo men out as like, oh my God, they're so this or so that, but Leo men, Scorpio men, Taurus men, Aquarius men, if you line these men up, you will see many similarities in them. It's just Leo is going to be the one that's the most bold, so it's easier to make them a target. But that fixed nature of Leo that you guys struggle with is also evident in all these other signs. Pearl said, accept Leo man as a fixed sign, love other signs, and I respect all the differences. So you love all the other signs except Leo. Hey, whatever works for you. We all come to the table with our own, baggage of who has worked for us and who hasn't worked for us and experiences that we've had. I think the most important thing is to realize what energies agree with you and what energies don't, and to be comfortable with that. Like, I don't think we're supposed to get along with everybody. Like, you have to know what works for you. Like, you're not supposed to be... That's the thing about love. We're not here to convince people to love us, okay? We're not here to perform for people to decide if we're worthy of love. We're here to just be. And our vibe is going to attract the people that are for us. If the Leo vibe is not your vibe, that's not your vibe. Like, why put yourself in the position to, to be in a situation where you're going to be uncomfortable, And this is what I love about Taurus, is that out of all these signs, Taurus is the one least likely to ever put themselves in the position where they're going to be uncomfortable. I absolutely adore, thank you AJ for my gift. I absolutely adore this quality about Taurus. Like, Taurus is just not with the bullshit. They're not interested in compromise. They make it very obvious what it is and they stick to it. They're not asking for you to persuade them to be otherwise. They just are. So it's either you're going to come in and you're going to take your place in their lives, or you're not. And that's fine. But don't think that they're going to be jumping through hoops or pretending to be something else or doing a bunch of different things so that you can approve of them. That is just simply not in their nature. They're not interested in it. They've never been interested in it, and they do nothing to indicate to you that they're seeking your approval about anything. And from that point of view, they always get my respect and admiration, because unlike the other four, Taurus doesn't even pretend to be malleable. They make it very clear. And me, I like clarity. I appreciate things to be crystal clear like water. I don't like mess. I don't like chaos. Just be yourself. You know, it's okay to change your mind, but just tell me what it is and be who you say that you are. I don't like when people pretend to be things that they're not. So out of those four, they're going to be the ones, in my opinion, to keep it the most real about the fact that if anything needs to be changing in the energy, you're going to have to initiate it. That's not to say Taurus can't change. Once a Taurian is committed to somebody, to a relationship, to a path, they stay the most committed out of all the fours that I mentioned. So it's hard for them to leave you hanging after they've said they're going to be on this path with you, okay? So as a result of that, Taurus really takes their time to get into that commitment because they know how they are. They know once they get in that zone with you, even if you end up being the worst of the worst and you end up doing them the most dirty, it's going to be hard for them to just give up on you, to just quit on you, and to just cancel you out. It's going to be hard, even if you do them wrong, because once they're committed, because of their fixed nature, they don't know how to get uncommitted. And at the end of the day, this is what it's about, right? It's not about who's the best zodiac sign, who's the worst zodiac sign. It's not about any of that. It's about what's for me, what works best for me. And if you know who you are, and you know that you're the type of person who doesn't like to leave people hanging, you're the type of person that likes to be serious about your commitments, and that doesn't like to waste time or energy or resources, and that likes to see things through, then you're going to be patient in getting into things because you know how difficult it is for you to get out of the thing. So astrology for me is really a tool of self-awareness. And I've never met a Taurus who was a rushing type of person for this reason, because they know how they are. They know once they get into it, they're going to be there for 100 years. So they're not trying to waste their efforts. And I appreciate that about them. But I think the others, they give you the impression, and I don't think it's coming from like a sinister place, like, ooh, I want to be conniving and manipulative, and I want to mislead you and waste your time. No, I don't think Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius are trying to be that way. It's just their impression is a lot more malleable. You know, like Leo looks like they're willing to do anything for your entertainment as long as you give them the accolades. You know, Scorpio looks like they're willing to go through any emotional transition that they need to go through with you as long as you stick by their side. You know, and Aquarius seems like they're willing to rock with whatever weird version of yourself is birthed tomorrow as long as you keep talking. Like, they all seem a lot more willing to receive your energy and to adjust themselves to your energy. But fundamentally, when it comes down to it, these four are never changing for anyone unless they decide to change. This is why being in a relationship with them can be very difficult, because even when they're wrong, they can't see it. Even when they're wrong, you can't show it to them. Even when they're wrong and you have the data, the bullet point, here's a picture right here. These are all the points on the graph that show that clearly A led to B led to C. You're going to be speaking this language for a million years, and they're going to be looking at you like this. I don't know what the problem is. I did all the things that I was supposed to do, because they have committed themselves to a path. And when they commit to a path, that's just the way that it is. Now, one day, through the grace of God, they might have a beautiful dream that shows them, you know, that they were wrong. And they will wake up in that morning with more awareness and go, you know what? I can see how this behavior is a problem. Let me work on that. And then they'll start working on it. But this is not something that these four would naturally do because they're so slow to make decisions, although Leo is the most impulsive of the four in making decisions, and Aquarius is second to that, that they believe they've done all of their homework before they make the decision. They tend to be very confident for this reason because they're very controlled and they're very thoughtful. And, you know, they're very much so about the method of the task. So when they've gone through the process of clearing their bases before making the decision, it's hard for them to accept that they may have missed something. Because out of everybody, they're the most thoughtful about their process. And they're the most slow. And typically when you go slow, you're less likely to miss things. So in their defense, their method makes it hard. Their demeanor, their approach, their modality makes it hard for them to be receptive to others because they are so controlled, unlike all the others. So that's pretty much it. That's what I would say about why is it hard to be in a relationship with a fixed sign? That's what makes it hard. Is because they're all stubborn. It looks different for all of them, but they all are stubborn, you know, and it's hard to get them to change their mind. Good question. All right, I'll take one more question and that's going to be it. Scorpio 56 said, what an opportunity for growth if we choose. Yes, exactly. Every day that we are alive and we have breath, we can choose something else. And personally, I try not to linger so much on the past mistakes because mistakes are supposed to happen. You know, it's not about the mistake. It's about what did we learn? Because if we're not learning, then we're not growing. And if we're not growing, we're just reliving the same day from the time we're born until the time we die, which means we're not evolving. And all of us are here to evolve. We're all here to grow. And a lot of that is recognizing what are my shortcomings? What do I struggle with? What are my triggers? You know, what do I need to work on? Like that level of awareness, that's really what's missing from a lot of people, in my opinion. It's not so much the mistakes, it's the lack of awareness that they are a work in progress. Now, all of us are a work in progress and that we never arrive and we're constantly learning, adapting, and updating our operational system, kind of like an iPhone, you know. They update the system, and now it's the most up-to-date version. You know, the mutable zodiac signs, they get that all of us are here to be updating constantly. But the fixed signs struggle the most with that. They don't understand that you're not supposed to stay in that same place, in that same mindset, in that same situation, in that same everything. Like, fixed means they're like the same every day. And, you know, they often get thrown a lot of things from the universe to get them to, you know, move around a little bit. And for many of them, instead of doing this, they get more emboldened. They dig their heels in further. As opposed to responding to the energy and choosing something else. Because there's more blessings on the other side. But the fear of losing control is too great for these four. So they will fight till the very end, even when the answer is actually letting go. So that's something better. A new reality develops right in front of them. It's not easy. I get it. But if we understand that it's about growth and not destination, then it's easier to accept. Yeah, all of us are learning and growing. As an Aquarius rising, I'll be the first to admit that I am very stubborn. So when I'm making these commentaries, I need you guys to know that I'm not exempt. Okay? I'm not better than anyone. I'm not worse than anyone. The difference is I'm not afraid of my shortcomings. I'm not afraid of areas where I fall short. I'm not afraid of my weaknesses. I'm not afraid of the things about me that I don't like. I'm not afraid of anything about me. I love all of me, even the part of me that drive me crazy, the part that I don't understand, the parts that are illogical, the parts that scare me, the parts that make me feel vulnerable. Like, I love all of it. I love all of it. I want more of it. I like to feel everything. Life is so beautiful. Every day is such a blessing to be able to grow, to learn, to evolve, to go through things, to survive things, to have stories to tell about the things, to be a different person, today than I was yesterday. Like, all of that, it makes my heart feel so soft. So I'm grateful for all of it. But I think for a lot of fixed signs, they can be so obsessed with getting it right, because they think it's a competition. They think it's a competition, and they've got to keep steady, and they've got to have the right answer. And I'm grateful that, being a Sagittarius, I understand that I'm supposed to be a shit show, and it's okay, because that's what I'm here to work on, how to be less of a shit show. And that means I'm going to make a lot of mistakes, and hopefully I'll learn so that I'm not repeating the same ones, which is really all that I ask of myself. Catherine said, I'm mostly fixed, and I definitely have learned I don't like change. Yeah, same. And then I have the nerve, on top of being an Aquarius rising or being a Capricorn stellium. So, I'm stubborn. So yeah, anyone that has these like rigid energies, in their chart, this is something you're going to struggle with. But I think the lack of awareness around those personality traits is exactly what makes relationships challenging. Relationships aren't challenging because people are messy. Relationships are challenging because messy people don't recognize they're messy. That's the problem. The problem isn't the fact that you're a messy human, because we all are. The problem is the lack of awareness that you're a messy human. And then the gaslighting that comes as a result of that lack of awareness, like the wanting to convince everybody that this toxic, dysfunctional behavior is normal. Like wanting to convince people that, oh yeah, this is fine, this is cool, this rocks. And people are like, is anyone else seeing this? That's the problem. There's too many of us that are not self-aware and that are not curious about our limitations. And we go through the world throwing our mess onto other people and taking zero accountability for it. And that's not a good way to live. It's not a good way to treat the people that you love. It's not a good way to treat anyone on this planet, to basically project your issues onto them and expect them to just take it. And then you get to walk away feeling like you're a good person, even though you just did something harmful to them. That never brings blessings. That never brings, thank you for my gift, Scorpio 56. I appreciate it. That never brings love, balance, and harmony to anyone's life. That attitude never does. If you want love, balance, and harmony, you have to be love, balance, and harmony. You have to be that, and you have to bring that, and you have to share that. And I know it's not easy to be in that energy all the time, but that is the ask. That is the ask under this Libra full moon, that we reflect on the ways that we aren't that. Oh, thank you, Pearl. And that we continue working on ourselves to become more of that, because it's only in embodying that we get to manifest that. And if all of us committed ourselves to that energy, imagine what that does if 100 people live this way. What about 1,000 people? What about 1,000,000 people? What about 8 billion people? How would Earth be different if all of us approached life from this place of how do I bring my best self out so that I can share my best self with others? It would be a beautiful world indeed. So that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for all your questions. I appreciate you hanging out with me. I know it's been hard to do the lives, so I'm not going to make any more promises because I know my life gets crazy and then I fall off. But school is about to be out soon for summer break, so hopefully I'll be that, that always makes life a little bit easier when there's no homework, there's no after school programs. So I'll definitely be more active during the summertime, but hopefully I'll catch you guys tomorrow around this time just to check in and see how everyone is doing. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for all my gifts and thank you for coming to hang out with me. And I look forward to catching up with you next time. Au revoir.
You can book your astrology reading at intuitivehealing.com. You can also watch videos at Intuitive Healing here on YouTube for Astrology 101 content. Listen to the Aquarius podcast on Spotify, as well as here on YouTube for your horoscope. If you're interested in astrology and love connections, you can visit at Styled Under Libra. And of course, for health and wellness and holistic healing, visit at Styled Under Virgo for all of your astrology content. Thanks so much for watching.